My fungal friends, we have a very special project for today. This one is going to be the orcs in Warhammer 40k, and in particular the flyers. Now, they have several different types of flyers, my favorite one being the Wasbomb Blaster Jet. That one works great on the tabletop, and we're also going to do a Daka Jet. Now, as you know, I'm a cheap bastard, so I'm going to not really buy the model for this one, but what I'm going to do is go to the next best thing and go to the dollar store and get some cheap squirt guns. So yes, we're going to use some cheap squirt guns to make a Wasbomb Blaster Jet and a Daka Jet. And as you can see too, they will be detailed with, here we go. These work very well. Gundam model kits have very small pieces that are very good to be orky and stick them on everything. And if anybody's like, I recognize that as a Gundam, you could say, it's from the Tau, okay? Shut up. And then they're going to be like, well, the Tau use polymers. They don't use metal, so it can't be rusty. And at that point, just drop kick them in the neck or something like that. So there we go. Let's see. Yes, that's it. And we're going to be off now to the horrors of the orcs. Okay, so this is the Corsair. This isn't the one we'll be doing today, but to use it as an example, this act worked out actually very well. This is a Corsair, a World War II. It's a 1/48 scale plane that I got actually at a consignment shop that was falling apart. It looked very sad, so I adopted it, and we orked the living hell out of it here. And as you can see, things were added to it. But as you can see with this ones, we have, okay, it was a 1/48 scale, and he's a little too big for the cockpit there, but he's orky. So that's like perfect, because that is exactly what they do. He's putting on his skinny jeans like in Metalocalypse there. Okay, these were from Puppets War here. They have the guns. Originally, this was going to be a Daka Jet, but I added on these two pieces right here. They were going to be thrusters, but they look so much like the from the Wasbomb Blast Jet, which would be the teleport mega blasters. I'm like, okay, no, I'm changing this to this guy here. He has too many guns on it right now, but according to my lore, they have limited ammunition, so once one fires, you have to fire the other one until they're all out. So they don't all fire at the same time, so that's my excuse why there's so many of the, what would be known as the super shooters. So only two work at the same time, even though we have too many of them there. So that's my way out of it. And as we'll be explaining later, it was basically greebled up with lots of Gundam parts. I believe that was a Gundam Part 2 right there. And yes, yeah, these are from the space station kit. And right on the back here, I took a squirt gun, I cut the bottom of it off, and I made a thruster out of it. I think that worked well for it. And we have the acrylic rod for a base. I'll get into the bases on the other one. And okay, let's start with the with our own Wasbomb Blast Jet that'll now be made out of a squirt gun. Okay, so he's off to battle. Let's bring a bunch of things over here and drive Wellington crazy as it's all out of focus. And I move too fast. Okay, so this is going to be the squirt gun we're going to use. I found this one in a dollar store. And the back comes right off of it right there. And off to the side it's going to have these two thrusters. I have two additional. I started one already, but I have two additional squirt guns. They're going to be attached here. So the basic effect, I'm like doing Julia Childs, I'm doing two at once so you can basically see, is they're going to be attached for the wings. So you have the wing strut thrusters right there, and this is the ABS sheeting I will be getting into later. But for the first move, oh yes, and this is the support for it on the bottom, which is what we'll start with. So okay, let's get into putting this guy back here. Let's get these prepared. Now with everything I do, I always wash the models first. You can use soapy water, or you can sometimes I let a little shaker. I put it in with alcohol, shake it up, and let it sit for about maybe 20 minutes, and then wipe it down. Because you want to get off from the factories, they have separator on it, and that will affect the paint job in the long run. And you'll need a Dremel tool for the next step. Okay, oh, I also did a little test. One thing about squirt guns is they all seem to be the same plastics as your model kits are. So what I did is I took a little piece of sprue, I put it on with the glue, and I tried it, and I did that yesterday. That stuck on there well, so okay, I now know one of my steps will work very good. So that's very good because the typical plastics that you get from the Warhammer products will stick to this. There's a little trick to that. Okay, so let's get the Dremel tool. And these are the various heads we're going to be using on it. Okay, this is one of my favorite. Actually, I use a tile bit for a lot of plastics, and you'll see you basically have to tap it. You don't hold it in there, it'll melt it, but this gives you a lot of control over it. They do have cutter heads, but sometimes with a cutter head it will grip things and pull it in and pull it out and make a mess, and so I do like the tile bit very much. But to start off with on this one, we're going to use one of these. This is the Hobby, the round cutting kit. A little miniature saw blade right there. Very orky. Okay, so get your Dremel tool, and this one has the chuck attachment to it. So we're going to get that in, tighten it. Okay, there we go. And yes, you will need a very good protective glove for this. So I got a nice little leather glove here for when I'm holding it. And so the areas we have to cut off is we have to cut out this section right here, just on the bottom. For this one, that's going to be the thruster because the rod's going to go through that. We're going to cut out this section right here.
You will obey Commander Kill Tot. Wear your safety goggles. Wear your safety goggles and hand protection. Now! Now! Now!
So here, let's get started. Yeah. Sometimes I like to do this. I keep my hand on the table so it won't get away from me. I think I'm going to finish it off with the tile bit. It's getting kind of hard to hit a couple of areas in it. Whoop. As you can see, just pop right off. You got to watch too. This is really pretty much when it's melted. It can be pretty nasty, so you have to give it a little time there. But that's okay, basically. And I'll get a file and I'll clean this up a little bit better for later. So that'll give me access to the bottom. Hey, bring the other one over here and. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is now, in the case with the other one that I had, I simply cut a hole into the bottom of it. Oh, let's see. And this is the acrylic rod, I'll get that into later. And I simply stuck it through, I cut a hole and I stuck it through for support, and then I epoxied the bottom. This one here I was kind of iffy on because it doesn't go that far, and I wanted to secure it a little better. So what I'm going to do is actually use a toggle bolt in it to actually give it more of a bit of a, you know, a little bit more strength right there. So for that, what I did was, okay, I took a toggle bolt because I'm going to have to reach it inside of there. And I just hot glued that just so that'll, okay, but I have to, looks like I have to rip this thing out of there before I go any further. Looks like it's a little tube to squirt the water out the front. That's in my way. Let's see if hopefully it'll just pull up. Yep, that's good. Pulled right out of there. So that's out of my way now. And see how far I can get this. I might have to Dremel some of this out, but I guess that's about, the other one I got a little bit farther. Okay, well, I guess this one was a little bit bigger, but I guess that'll work for now. I want to get it. It looks like that's actually one of the best points where it's kind of balanced, but let's see how far this goes. This goes not that far. So the hole's going to be like right about there. I was going to put a little quick mark on there so I know where to Dremel the hole.
Using a Dremel tool? Where are your safety goggles? Wear your hand protection! Safety goggles, hand protection! I command you! I command you!
And put my glove back on. And I'm going to put a hole big enough for this 1/4-20 rod to go, screw to go through. And remember, just tap it. Don't try to force it. Okay, we got the hole in now, now let's make it wider. That should be good. Stay, stay! Bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. Okay, that seems good. Oh, I also have to put a nut on this. So I can take a 1/4-20 nut and work with it. Get over there. Put your 1/4-20 nut on. Fish this through. Ah, okay, caught it. Tighten right about to there, just a little bit. And this is only going to go hand tight because I'm on styrene right now. This is pretty weak. I'm going to reinforce that later. And when we get to the end product, this is going to be cut and epoxied into the acrylic rod. But for now, that gives me something to hold on to too. Okay, next step, we want to get the wing struts on. So I'm going to put, let's see, we'll go right about here. Put a hole right there, going through to the other side. And since both sides are identical, I could basically eyeball it right there. So let's put 2 more holes in. It'll be a 1/4-20 rod, same as this. Okay, should be clear there. Now for the other side, it started here, but it ended up over here. So we're gonna okay, good, there. That's what we're going to use for the support. So we're going to get it nice and even. 2 nuts on each side. Remember, whenever you're doing this, only do this hand tight because you're on styrene. And if I actually use the wrench on it, it would probably crack. So we're going to get this nice and even. Let's see, where's that? I can pretty much eyeball that even. There we go, and just, there we go, and maybe CA glue that later to make sure it doesn't move. And as from there, you go over there. Yeah, a little more. Yeah, that's a good size right there. Now, because I'm going to have to hold it in place for a while, I've got my Propoxy 20. So this will dry in 5 minutes, and I'll have to hold it for 5 minutes to get it exactly where I want it. What you do with this is, I'm going to cut off initially just about that much. That's about as much as I need to tack it in there. I'm going to mix it up here, so pretty much at this point you can just mix it together. You don't have to have it in 2 separate pieces. It does it by itself. Okay, that mixed pretty fast. That's pretty good. So now let's smear it onto here. see where it'll be going in, where it'll be hitting is up to the front more. So I'm going to stick it up to that front area. And then put it together. Okay, now what I have to do is I have to make sure when it sets itself in place, I have to make sure I have it straight. So I'm going to look at it this way. And I got to look at it this way and hold it in place until it sets. So let's see, that's pretty straight. Okay, good. That's in line with the body right there. That's in line there. And then you have to look at it this way to make sure. My hand's kind of in the way, but okay, it's falling back. Okay, that's a good spot for it. And then maybe press it, kind of press it in there a little more. Oh, I moved it a little, move it back, move it straight. Okay, and now comes the part of holding it for 5 minutes. Okay, had a little bit of an oopsie here. I forgot to add. What I did was I took a fender washer. Remember we attached this piece in here? I kind of jumped ahead of that. But I took a fender washer, I ground down the sides, and I used it for an extra support on the bottom. You could possibly just use a regular washer on it if you have no other choice. But I simply took it, hit it with a pair of pliers, ground it down, and that would give it a little bit of extra support. Before, I had it just on the plastic. So that's, whoops, forgot to mention that. Okay, now let's get to the wing struts here. Now this is a piece right here of 1/8 inch vacuum form ABS. Now I know you can get this on, I believe, like Amazon, or you can get it on eBay. It's used for vacuum forming. I actually get a lot of this from a friend. He has his own special effects shop, and I get the scraps off of them. What they do is this is heated up, it's put over a form, it sucks it to a particular shape. So this right here is just the sheet itself. So this is the 1/8 inch vacuum form. And personally, when I cut it, I have a, I wouldn't say, well, I use industrial tools to cut it. I really, unless you have a lot of experience with tools, I would not do it the way I do it. So the safer way to do it, if you had to get a long piece like this, was, where's the, here. Okay, for example here, I took this piece of wood. I screwed it directly to it, and that's okay. Say I'm going to make a piece that's shaped like this, right here. So, you know, similar to that. I screwed it onto here, and that's okay because it's going to get all little greebles and pieces on it later, so those will be hidden. It doesn't matter where you have the screws. And in this case, I'll take a hacksaw, or a finely bladed PVC saw will work good too. And have to be very patient. Kind of start right there till you get a nice grip on it. And this blade is really dull. Try to get as straight as line as possible. And I don't mind if I cut the wood a little bit, because that's just to secure it. And there we go. Through the magic of cinema, we now have a PVC saw, because the other one was so damn dull. This one's a little dull too, but okay, that's a little bit better. And there we go. And I actually did 2 pieces at a time right here. And the reason for that is I'm doing the little pylon wing dagger thingies. As you can see on this, I wanted these to both match up. So they were both cut at the same time. But the trick is, with the vacuum form, one side is usually textured and one is flat. So when I did cut it, I put the non-textured side toward itself when I did the cut. So when it came apart, you would have texture on top, texture on top. If you did it this way, well, this would actually be flipped, and you would end up with a smooth and then a textured, and it would just look kind of off. Okay. Now that the long piece is out of the way, okay, I'm going to remove it from the screws. And that's kind of a rough cut, but you can take a file, you can clean it up a little bit. So there you go. And for the smaller details, because all that sawing can get rather tedious at times, you should cut it with a pair of tin snips. Or if you're lucky enough, if you have one of these, this is called an easy cutter. It's more of a craft tool. And say, okay, wanted to make them even, I could maybe put this angle on it here. Bing! Okay, get that. Oh yeah, put the holes together so we get it exact. And next one. Bing! Ah, there, across the room. And so, with the smaller cutter, it's much easier to cut your shapes with these, or the tin snips. And then just take a file and clean it up a little bit so you can make it look even. So that's good for the bigger pieces. Sometimes I'll cut one long strip, like if I'm going to make little orky dagger pieces. And with the thin strip, I'll just use one of these. And just make myself little... I have to try to save one of these. These little pieces here, and then you can clean them up, file them maybe. Cut the corners a little bit. Cut it to a nice little point. Okay, so now to the wing strut. Now we're going to make the next one for the next wing here. Of course, okay, we have to cut the bottom out with a Dremel tool.
Safety goggles and hand protection! Safety goggles and hand protection!
And I'm going to use my use that round cutter head on it again. Okay, let's take the next bottom piece off. Let's make sure it stops before you put it down. Okay, so that'll, as we did previously. Now to mount this on, I want to give it a nice bit of security. I already marked the other one where that center hole goes through, so that should land perfectly. So let's see, where on this one does this one land? And we're looking like right there is a good place to eyeball it, to run the screw through. So dead center of that little design on this side, and the other side is corresponding perfectly. And now we're going to switch to the tile bit. Ah! Okay, and remember, we're just going to tap it because it's going to really melt into it, so. Now, if you're wondering why I never drill on the styrene here, is with a drill, it's usually going to catch and it's going to, go all to hell. It'll usually crack it, it'll break it, it'll get jammed, or end up on the end and be swinging around right in your eye, of course. Okay, and here I'm using 6/32 by 2 bolts. Nuts and bolts. Okay, so let's see, that's the top there. And what I usually do to hide that screw is in the finished product, I'm going to just cover a little bit of epoxy so it just looks like a regular bolt. And, okay, match that up. So that's going to go there, and then this will tie in the bottom. But before we do that, okay, what I did previously to this was I took some ABS glue. Okay. Okay, so this is the ABS, black medium ABS cement. Now, you can get these at plumbing supplies. Now, we're in Jersey here, wonderful Jersey. You can we use ABS pipe on waste piping here. Some states, the warmer states like Florida, do not use this. So it might be a little tricky to find, but this works incredible when you're using it on ABS to stick things together. It welds it together. And in this case here, I just took a little bit off the top. And this can get really messy. See, it's got that big globule right there. So I just took a little rod and just grabbed a little bit of ABS glue, and as you can see there, I put it where I'm going to attach it there. I put it on the top, and then I did the Anakin trick. Let me just run over and Anakin trick this real fast. And there's the sand. And that'll dry the glue right in there for the next step that'll be coming up. Now for the styrene, it's a little bit different. I'm going to do the sand trick on the styrene, but in this case, it's a little bit different. You put it on there, smear it, just where I want these two to meet. And I'm going to use Abe's epoxy sculpt in between them so that they bond harder. But when I do this one, I want to press it in there as much as possible. And then once that's once I give it like maybe an hour to dry, like I did a little spot over here, I try to scratch the sand off as much as possible. And in a sense, with this, the glue doesn't stick the sand to it, but it embeds it in there. So I just want what's embedded in there. So that'll actually give that. Oh, that's a nice rice surface that I can grab. That'll be the same thing. And normally I would wait longer to do the next step, but we're pressed for time, so I'll get to the next thing. Okay, so go back to the Abe's epoxy sculpt. I'm going to put a little bit, as you can see with this one, in between there. Habit burger. Equal parts. Okay, and now to put it all together. Now the reason I'm using this is, instead of just bolting this together, is it could land awkward on it. It's on a very rounded surface right there. So in this case, this will act as a kind of medium to even it out. So then the sand there. And just going to start this. Okay, now here's where I press it in. I'm gonna hold it right where I want it. And the nut is just very lightly gonna hold it. So, okay, I have to make this, I'm gonna use that to eyeball it. This line, even with the strut, try to get that both this way and this way as much as possible, so that's nicely uniform. And later on, this could be hid with all sorts of things, but for now, and you can even go in there and clean it up a little bit. And let's see how it matches to the other one. Okay. I think that's pretty good for a first try.
Not bad.
Yes, yeah, really. Okay. But say if it was like off kilter a little bit, and I'll be like, oh no, okay, so you could just get it to where you want it. Let's see, that's, yeah, right about there. And just a little hand tight. Make sure this is still, okay, that's got to go this way a little. Yeah, check every angle, make sure. Okay, line in line, we're good. This is even on there, and right when you get it right where you want it, we go for the CA glue. And then a little dab of CA glue that helps get in there. I just hit it, so I'm going to check it again. Okay, we're good. Check it one last time for the CA glue. A little drop in there. Okay, then I'm going to put this aside. And later on, not today, but I'll do the same method I did over here. And we'll attach that in. Okay, we're going to get little orky-like dagger struts in here, so matter of fact, to make it a little more ornate. Okay, I'm just going to cut off these ends here, just to give it a little more character to it. And take some ABS glue. Okay, put some up and some below. Being careful to keep the textured side to the top. And when I do the other side, I'm going to match it to it. And you only have to hold it there for a second, and this stuff is great. That bonds right in there. Okay, there's on the more complete model you can see. I still have one more piece to put right there. But what I did is I took some googly eyes from the craft store here. And I didn't use the ABS glue, I used regular epoxy glue, because the ABS glue will not stick to this, it only sticks to ABS. So I took some regular epoxy and I kind of placed it, and later on when this is painted, they won't look like googly eyes, they'll look like bolts. It'll look quite a bit different. So they give it a nice orky look, and then some can go on the body. Okay, now I also want to decorate the front of it with the same kind of stabby look, a nice orc stabby look. So what I did was, I made up several of these. I already have the eyeballs on there. And I took a piece of styrene sheet, cut it with a piece of scissors, and I attached this with, I guess you could use epoxy with it. This is another one I wouldn't use ABS glue, but I used this worked good attaching it together. I used Lexel. Kind of like that stuffed goop. And I cut little pieces to the back, and the trick to this is, this styrene will stick directly, because this is styrene against styrene. The ABS won't stick to the styrene unless you epoxy it and hold it forever. But to do it very quickly, I'm going to use the regular styrene glue. And I'm going to put it around the smasher gun in the front here. Hold it right there. Okay, there goes one. And being that it's working, it's not going to be uniform. It could be all wacky. So put like one long, one short. You know, you could totally mix it up. Here comes a short one. And we'll put another long one here. And with the styrene trick, you could put it on anywhere on the model, but we'll just concentrate on the nose for now. See, that attaches it nice and fast. See, where's the next long one? This one. Okay. I might make a few more long ones. Okay, I have to make a few extra ones. I need a nice long one next. I think the next one's too short, but that's the basic idea for that. That'll go around the entire thing. This one bent a little. Try to get that straight. Though it's orky, you really don't have to have it too straight. Now, that's going to hold it just to get it into place, really. That's not what's really securing it. I'm going to go back here to the A and B epoxy. Okay, that. Okay, 2 equal parts. Now this is what's really going to seal it. Now the trick is, now being that it's orky, it doesn't have to be pristine or anything. So it's going to look like, like a really crappy weld, like, my welds at work look like. I'm very good at soldering, not very good at welding. But being orky and all, you don't have to worry about that. Get that nice and mixed up. And just like a weld, I'm going to work it on the outside. And this, don't forget that this will also, in the end, it's going to be texture painted. So everything's pretty much uniform. So this really won't stick out as being too gloppy. And just work my way around that to try to get as much in between and catching it. If it ends up gloppy, it doesn't matter. When the texture paint hits it, it'll give it a nice uniform, gross look. So you have to keep your eye on this, because if you walk away, it might get a drip, and the drip might make it look a wee bit off. And though the epoxy doesn't stick as well as the styrene glue to styrene, this is the best way to go, because if you covered it in styrene, the styrene glue wouldn't stick to the ABS. At least I don't think it will, but never did on a test. Okay, so I'm going to keep my eye on that, make sure it doesn't drip, and just let that dry. Okay, so we're going to need to support this right here. And I guess this whole area, I want to fill it all in with something. Now, you could use the same stuff I used, the same epoxy I used before, just to fill it all in. That adds a little bit of weight. Same thing with the Aves epoxy sculpt. I wanted to go a little bit more lighter, and I don't know if this will be readily available to you, but you could use the other stuff. But I like to use Free4Air if I'm going to use something. This is a 2-part mix from Smooth On. And this is good if I'm doing lightweight work, if I have to keep it lightweight and to support this. So basically it comes in like 2 little dough balls. And I'm going to mix that up. It has a much different consistency of the other epoxy putties I work with. But okay, so this is going to reinforcement, and the idea to this is it's going to keep it light, because I don't want to put too much weight on it because it's a piece of styrene. But like I said before, you could use whatever is available. You could use the regular plumbing epoxy on it, or the other 2-part, the Aves epoxy sculpt. Let's just work that in there. Because it's really messy. Okay, I'm going to wet my finger and sort of blend that all in. Made way too much. Yeah, right now it has the consistency of spackling to it, and in a little while it'll get harder and harder. Right, I'm going to wash my hands real fast. Okay, try to tool that in a little bit. Yeah, put that there for now. And this doesn't have to be perfect. This is all going to get hidden in the next step. I'm going to give this a little bit of setting time before I go back to it. Right now it's too much like spackling. And let me show you in the... this is what it'll turn out to be in the end. As you can see, it's all nice in there and smooth. Okay, and the next step it'll be covering once you get that, the next step will be to cover that. Okay, now in this piece we're going to begin covering it up a little bit. I've cut 2 ABS pieces here. 2 more daggers, and I sanded the other side. I sanded these two. I just used some epoxy right on that, and we're going to fit that. Let's see, like that, or would it look better this way? I think that way fits a little better. And once again, we're going to do the Aves epoxy sculpt trick, because it might, I don't know, just to get it to the right elevation. There we go. Smear a little bit on that. Make sure that's going to hold right there. Okay, what did I say? Yes, that's what I decided. Or was it the other way? Which way was it? Was it... yeah, that was the way. That was the correct way. Okay. And we have to make these both even. So I'm going to smash them right in there. Okay, yeah, I like that little... It has a little bit of an angle to it. It's not flat, so that gives it a pretty good look. Going to... Okay, this has to go down a little to be even with the other one. Okay, let's see, how does that look so far? Taking it from this angle, this has to go up. Yeah, right about there. Look at it straight. So let's come down. Okay, I think that's good. And then just give that a little shot of CA glue. Okay, and off. Okay, next we have the Ork super weapon for the Wazbomb Blast Jet. We have the Teleport Mega Blaster. Now this is what I love to use. This kit here is great. Let's move this aside. This is called the Space Adventure Model Kit. It's made by a company called New Ray. And it's a, I guess it's the United States NASA Space Station, but all these little bits and pieces right here, these make great crazy looking guns. I mean, you could use them as pretty much like the C-beam weapons or any sort of other crazy thing. And let me show you on the original Wazbomb I made. As you can see, this was one of the... Here's the teleport weapons right here. That came from this kit right here. And you get several inside of there, so the next ones I'm going to use from the kit. And by the way, I bought 2 kits, so you'll have a matching pair, so I have one on each side. I believe that was like $15. I got it maybe 2 years ago, might have changed, but originally it was about $15 at the local hobby store. Could probably get it on eBay. So I got 2 opposing ones. I did the sand trick right there from the 2 different kits. And we're going to go back. And we're going to put them, a good place to put them would look like to be right here. So I'm going to mount them then, and we're going to go, yep, here we go again, the Aves epoxy trick. Okay, I'm going to put a little piece aside for later. Hopefully that isn't too much. Okay, well, and we'll fill that in with the CA glue. Might want to go a little, and maybe take an X-Acto knife, clean a little of the excess off. Okay. Onto my favorite Orky part now is the pilot. So we see here, now this one here is from, I took bits from a company called Spellcrow. They're there's the little scamps. They're one of my favorite bit companies. They're from Poland. And what I did is I went to conversion bits for the orcs. Okay, let me remove this for a moment, and here's the information right here in this highly advanced digital copy here. So it's spellcrow.com. We're not affiliated, but I just love these people. They're great. So you go to conversion bits. This is what I did for this project. I went to orcs. It's old school with a C, like old D&D. And what I did is I picked up the orc crew torsos. I have these right here. I'm going to show those. And I also used the freebooter orc hands with guns. Now, he's not going to be holding guns. He's going to be holding his steering wheel for the what do you call it? The joystick, whatever the hell you call it on a jet. But this is what I'm going to use for it. And these will be snipped off. They'll be attached. And I do like that they have like an old revolver top to them. So that's kind of pretty funny. Well, not actually a revolver. That would be a flintlock. Okay. Close enough. Close enough. And for the heads, I like using the orc heads with the gas masks. That's on their list there because it that gives it a pretty. Here's an example right here. That kind of gives it that Imperial pilot look to it. I kind of like the Imperial Empire stuff. And it's also great. They have the Orc Storm Flying Squadron heads. They also make those. So you have your choice of bits. There's several different bits you can use from, depending on what kind of army you have. Now, also, there's another option. I also love this company, too, called Cromlech, bitsawar.com. They have, you go to conversion bits by race, greenskins, and they have ones for the orc vehicle crew, which would just be, it has everything with it. It has the figure, the joystick, and everything in one piece, around $7. And you can use that also. And just as a note here, I also love Puppets War, EU. That you could use orc cannons and orc hatch guns for different parts of this project if you wanted to just, just buy it and just stick it right on there and not build it. So that's, for the weapons, puppetswar.eu has some really excellent things. And now to the pilot. First of all, okay, now I'm going to want to attach the arms. So here I'm going to, just for now, I'll snip this off here. I'm going to use this torso. And let's start with the right arm. Okay, I'm going to cut that right there. Cut the stub off. Okay, so you get the heads, the arms, and the torso separate. So, now, okay, you might think that's odd, like, is he shooting two guns off of his flyer? No, actually, I'm going to cut the front of it off. And as you can see with this other one here, he's going to be holding a steering wheel, or a joystick. And that's going to be glued right into here. So you can just, and it's very orky. It's like, it still has that flintlock look to it, and it's attached to the joystick here. So, that seems pretty orky. Now, where I got this piece was, I'm going to go into this much detail with this later, but I went to a Gundam kit, and I just found a sprue that I don't even know what part of the robot this would have been, or the armored bodysuit, but this worked perfect for the handlebars there. So that'll be, I'll show you that in a moment. But for this, when I put these together, this is my favorite way of doing it. I like to really secure these. Some people you can just, glue these on. But I always like to give it a little extra. So I'm going to start by drilling a small hole. Okay, okay, now I want to get it in a different position than it would normally be. Normally be sticking out too far. I want to bring it in. So what we're going to do here is, I'm going to have to mark this where I want it. So I'm going to stick this in here. A little bit of an angle. That's where I want it, so I'll get the hull started. A little mark right there, and I want to keep it at an angle right about there. And remember, just in case you drill through, make sure your hand's not on the other side. And make sure it's cleaned out a little better. There. There you go. Give it a test run. Okay, that'll work. I got it a little bit high, but I can fill that in later. So, and basically I'm going to take this off. I'm going to put some epoxy on it, wipe a little epoxy in there. Put it all together. We're not going to do that. We have the other one completed. We'll probably have to go into the back and maybe fill in a few little gaps, and here's one of the heads here that we have from Spellcrow. This one here is actually the Ork gas masks, which actually they work good for planes too, but they have one called the Ork Storm Flying Squadron Heads. They're made specifically for flyers. They're very good also. And also as a note, yes, with these will be trimmed off to be made into the joysticks, so in the end. But okay, let's move on to the completed one. So as you can see, this was epoxied and filled in. Oh, and I also used, once this was dried up, I used my Dremel tool just to cut the end of the wire. If you're good enough, you might be able to get the wire perfectly where you want it. Okay, now, switching back to the tile cutting bit, let's see where he'll be a good placement for him. He'll be right about, I think right there. So he's going to fit right here. And also I'm going to snip off a little bit of the gun because this is going to be turned into a joystick. And what I did is I'll do the sand trick on this, as I showed before, with a little bit of Abe's epoxy sculpt to hold them in and glue that. And for the steering wheel, I'm going to use an example of the next one. I'll bring that right down. As you can see, he was attached with that trick right there. And I used a bit of a Gundam model, and I'm going to show you in a moment, that we're going to basically be kit bashing it off a Gundam model. That was a good piece to make the steering wheel. I'll call it the steering wheel. I don't know what the hell to call it. And I put that in with a little Abe's epoxy sculpt to hold that in. So that'll be that. And okay, now this is the trick to my big trick for decorating things. Is, as you can see, with the original one right here, I decorated this with all Gundam parts. So as you look at these pieces right here, I sort of just found different ones in the model kits. And whatever landed just the right way, I attached to the styrene with the styrene glue, and then I went back and I reinforced it with the actual epoxy. So let's break out a kit. Yeah, these are great right here. The Iron-Blooded Orphans. Okay, that sounds great. That sounds just adorable. And what I'll do is I'll get an entire kit, and I have no idea the way the original model is supposed to look. But I will snip off pieces of them. Find different ones I like and then snip them. And I'll put them in a container full of alcohol for about 10 minutes and swish them around just to clean off any of the separator that they use at the factories, because the paint will scratch off easily if you don't do that. So it has to be washed off with either alcohol, or you could use soapy water, either way. And then I usually make myself, let's see, I'll cut myself a huge batch and put it in a bowl so I can pick and choose as I go along. And in this case here, I took some that were doubles, or ones that work on either side, so if you do one wing and the other wing, it'll match. But it's Orky, so it doesn't have to be perfect. As I mentioned before for the pilot, okay, I got a whole slew of little bits and pieces I could work out the steering wheel with. I could try that one. I could try this one here, but I'll get onto him later. You see, I could work it like several different ways of getting a steering wheel out, like we did with Bob over here. Okay, so let's start attaching pieces. So we want to build up on it. I found, oh, here's a good piece for the back. Give them a nice little back cushion right there. So going to check it, see how it fits, see where it lands. And remember, with this part right here is not solidly attaching it. We're going to go back over later and hit it, make a nice bead of epoxy to hold that in. But so pretty much that'll instantly set. So that's good right there. Once that, we're going to over a little bit right there. And what would look good? Okay, we have two dueling pieces over here. Where would they look good? I could try right here. Looks good. Yeah, I think that'll work. So and with the styrene glue, that sticks immediately. I'm fungal. Stuck to my finger, not the model. Okay. Let's see, what would that, another little odd part. Maybe I can, yeah, I think that works right there. And you could layer them on top of each other. And in some cases, if you need something to go flatter on something, you could always snip the little hubs on there. If I have a dueling piece. Okay, here's two dueling pieces here. They might look good. Well, for these over here, I want to put two super shooters in them anyway. So what I decided to do for that was this is actually from a model called Connects, where you kind of stick them together, all like Lincoln Logs or whatever. And this actually made a very good gun for it. That fit pretty good in there. And these will be epoxied in. Just going to show these for an example. But I also wanted, because the end of it doesn't have a barrel on it, I want to make my own barrel. So what I do first is, I'll make a small hole, and then just a starter hole, just to get the center of it. Okay, so that'll be the center. Whoops! And then go back with a bigger one to just give it a little of an accent so it has more of a barrel to it. And I guess you could also paint it in too if you wanted to, but that's all. You don't have to go in far. That's enough because it'll get a paint job, and then I can glue that in there. And even, okay, I think that works pretty good for that. Do I have a double of this one? That's the trick. Yes, I do have a double. Okay, and that fits very well, so I'm going to go back and epoxy that later, but for now I can put the little greeble on there. This is my favorite way of doing a flyer base. Now, you can buy the flyer bases. I've never been too keen on those. They come out, they got all these struts on them and stuff. They kind of look, yeah. So what I prefer to do is I prefer to get a acrylic rod. And in this case, I got this off of eBay. From Duco Plastic Supply Company. It's I got the 1/2-inch clear acrylic rod, which worked very well for me. Here's what it looks like, but it's got to be cut to size. So I checked online to see what the flyer size is, and it seems to be, if this one's correct, it's 120, which is actually, these flyers for Warhammer are on a 120 base already. So it would be the same size. I think I marked it here, or maybe I didn't. I marked it on the other one. So it's basically will be the same size, but going upward. So what I have to do now is cut the rod. Now this could be a little bit tricky. Now, 'cause these are very brittle. When you try to cut them, they can go into like they get shattered and go into like a billion pieces. I want to scribe around it. It's not going to cut all the way through. And then I'm going to go back with a hacksaw, and it'll probably crack off at one point, but as long as I have it scribed, it should keep it from breaking up this way, because we don't want to do that. We want to get the cleanest cut as possible. Okay, so getting the safety glove on, going to scribe around. Okay, now keep in mind, when this stuff gets melty, it's really hot. So I have a glove on so I can take that off right there, but you don't want to, you let that want to cool down before you touch that a little. Unless you have a safety glove, you want to clear that. So, okay, I have that scribed. Next we bring out old Rusty the hacksaw. And we get the model out of the way, because with my clumsiness, this will go flying for real. Okay, and very carefully, and take your time with it. Don't go crazy. Let the blades do the job. And pretty much right before it reaches the end, it'll probably snap. But as long as it snaps on the inside and the outside's okay, we're fine. There we go, and success. That's exactly what we want. Nothing chipped like that. I'm just going to take the tool and just scribe this a little bit, just to give the epoxy something really good to grab to. I'm just going to rough that up. And I could do the sand epoxy trick, but this should be good enough for this. Because I'm going to work some 5-minute epoxy into that to hold that. Now for the base, what I did was, here's the 120 base. I put several holes in it. I got some framing wire. And I ran it through at different points, trying my best to keep it as flat as possible where the flat sides are. And I'll bring it, let's flatten that out. I bring it up, twist it, so that's nice and tight, and then snip it. The reason for this is, when I put on the final details and the rocks on it, I want it to really grab onto the base so the whole thing doesn't just pop off. So this gives it quite a bit more reinforcement. I also had to decide where would be the best place. So right about there, that's about the best place to be for the rod to go up. Make sure this is nice and even. Okay, and we're going to break out the Pro Epoxy 20. This is the 5-minute plumber's epoxy. Oh, you know what I should do too? I should definitely do the sand trick on this. So I'm going to get that. Spread out a little more. Get some brigantine sand. Should let that dry a little more, but okay, let's move to the next step. Take a nice big chunk of this. Okay, I'm going to roll this up. Okay, now with the epoxy ready, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure, because I have epoxy on my fingers, don't want to mess this up, is I'm going to smear that nice and deep into there so that gets a nice good grip on it. And apply the next to here, and try to grab as much wire as possible. Okay, and find that center. Let's see, where does it look? How does that look for center? I'm going to go this way and this way. I think a little that way. Okay, and then press all the way down. That'll hold it. And I made sure the table was leveled first, and then I'll take the ladle here and go. I gotta know it's got to go this way. Okay, I might. It's still a little bit in the doughy stage, so I'm going to go back and I'll level it when it sets up for probably about maybe 2 more minutes. So it's a little bit more firm, but I'll get that exactly where I want it. And later on, we'll move on to doing the rocks for the base. Okay, and my old favorite here, Abe's epoxy stuff was the next stuff I used. And you see, I built it for a little extra support, and this is what all the rocks will go on. Now, you can use whatever you want. Some people use cork bark. Some people have the hobby stuff or whatever you find in your front yard. I like to use this. Now, believe it or not, I get this from Sandy Hook. So if you're not anywhere near Sandy Hook, New Jersey, on the beaches, they had these old forts. And they used to throw out the slag from the boilers into the water. And this is what it turned into. And I tell you, this is some of the greatest terrain I've ever seen. But it's unless you're by somewhere where they threw slag into the ocean, it'd be very difficult to find. So let's see, I think I'll put that right there. I think I'll get a little Abe's epoxy skeleton and dig it in at a few spots. And we're going to have to cover that base too. So yeah, these, let's see, where would that look good? Yeah, like that, right like that. And let's see, would that be, that might be a little too much. So, I've got little smaller pieces too. Okay, I guess I'll just use that for the large stuff. I'm going to go back and cover it. Now, this is also great stuff right here. I get this, you could basically just cover this all rocks and sculpt that in if you want. I like this Liquitex. It's the ceramic stucco. It's a texture gel, and what I do is I mix it with a little bit of black, what do you call it, acrylic coloring to get it to, kind of get it to this effect. Matter of fact, I got to get rid of this last piece here, so I'll stick that right there. And this is great. You can work with it, and you have a lot of drying time with it. Just going to fill that in. These are great for all different sorts of bases. If you buy the actual base set, it could be pretty expensive. So this is good. You get a nice big container. And this can be painted over too. Just kind of get that nice little rocky look. And then I could add other little pieces to it. These are actually cinders from a roof. Working from a flat roof. And I like these too. This is from a local aquarium. They had the ye could be golden nuggets. I don't think they're real gold, being it was only $2 for the package, but you could fit them in there too. Okay, I'm going to give the whole thing a coating. And I don't have to cover rocks on all of it. Some of it can just be regular sand base. Just kind of texture that. Get it right to the edge. Now that I have all my pieces done here, we're going to reinforce it like I mentioned before. So as you can see, it's just held on with styrene glue. It's still a bit fragile. So I took some of my epoxy and mixed it with a little bit of colorant, and I'm going to add a little bit of the West System high density filler just to get it a little bit thicker. Not very good stuff to breathe in, so you should either wear a respirator or you could even try baby powder. Baby powder should work too. just to get it nice and get a little bit. It's still a little too wet. I don't want it to run too much. Now, because this doesn't have to be pristine and it'll look like either a Gretchen or an Ork welded it, I don't have to worry about it being too fine. But as you can see, where it's attached, I'd say right about here, I'm going to work that into there, try to smooth that out as best as possible. Now, if I was doing something like an Imperium ship where it would have to be pristine, I'd have to go back and clean it up much better. But like I said, these are really lousy Gretchen welds, so we'll go with that for now. Up here, I'm just going to put a little dot. I'm not going to go too crazy. This really is just for looks. And yes, and previously we did it down here. Sometimes too, we could really concentrate on the underside so it doesn't show up as much from the top. Well, looks like I hit that before. I'll give it another little shot here. And I'll go back over later, and just to make sure if it runs anywhere, I'll just spread it out a little bit better in case it gets. I don't want it to be drippy. It can be crappy, but not drippy. Unless it was a Nurgle model, then it might work out perfectly. Slowly running out of epoxy here, but I'll just mix up another batch. And you're usually better doing that in small batches at a time, in case all of a sudden drying time gets nasty on you, because I've had that happen to me before. Where I thought I had much more time to work on it, and then the whole damn thing just starts going. Oh, let me get a little on the bottom there too. Let me borrow some from here. That's a little overdone. Okay, yeah, see, I could smooth that out a little bit here. Let me just clean that up just a little bit. That's showing a little too much. Kind of spread that out a little. Okay, I think that'll do. And here's the Wazbomb Blaster Jet. As you can see here, I gave it a coating of a primer coat. Now, the primer that I used on this was Rust-Oleum in camo that they usually use on vehicles. And it works as a primer too. So that basically make it conformed. There'll be a different painting video. But for now, just to show you how it looks conformed into one single color. And that's the Wazbomb Blaster Jet. Now, on the other one, on the Dakka Jet, you can see I added a turret here. This was from a World War II model, add an extra gunner. And this one is going to be different. This one is going to be the Dakka Jet. And, you know, the Orks have their Dakka here. You've got 6 guns on it. They shoot the living hell out of everything here. And, you know, and notice how these are going kind of in the wrong direction. That's why they're like 5+ to hit. They stink at shooting things, good up fighting close. And if they just went a little bit forward, it would probably be a 4+. But those are Orks for you. So another reason why I did this on this one wing was I looked at it, and when I attached the wing, it was off just a little bit. So, and I was originally going to take it off, And then I decided, you know, what would orcs are kind of nutty, so they would just like keep adding crap to something. So the reason it might be off is because they put a big gun on it instead. I was originally thinking also maybe having a little Gretchen, these little goblins, trying to weld it on, you know, as it's taking off because it was a screw up. But I just went up with this, so. And when you see it, I also notice that this one has a little bit of extra paint on it. I'll go over that one. I jumped a little bit ahead here, sorry folks. I'll go over that one when we do the painting video. So, and I also had this tilted a little bit on the bottom, so when it does go on the base, and the base will be it'll be complete 100% with the painting video, I get it all together, and this side goes up a little bit. Now the reason for that is orc science. Now notice on this side, well, it has more air in it. So by the air, it raises the ship up a little bit, you know, like a helium balloon. You might say, well, because of the weight, shouldn't it go that way? No, no, no. Orc science is much, much better than the Imperiums. Imperiums are very stupid. Stupid minds, stupid, stupid, stupid. So, and there you go. So that's what keeps it up there. A little bit too much of the, as you go, oxygen stuck in there. And there we go, boos and ghouls and folks out there for now, and on to the painting video. Ta-ta!